Carolyn Doobie here. What's the play for today? Well, today I'm sharing one way that you can use washi tape when building an art journal page. I'm going to be building this page in my giant jumbo vintage ledger. It's this huge oversized journal. And I want to say a great big thank you to everyone who's given me suggestions for what I should call this thing. I definitely wanted to have a name. It seems like it should have a name, but it hasn't quite found its name yet. So if you have any suggestions for what you think I should call this thing, I'd love to know it in the comments. Now on to today's play. I'm going to start this art journal page by writing down what's on my mind. I'm using a big old Pitt pen there, and I'm just scribbling away whatever's running through my mind. Now as I'm writing this, I am writing actual words, but I can't read them either, so don't feel badly if you're not sure exactly what that says. Apparently there was a lot on my mind, so I brought in another pen and started doing some more journaling. And I'll keep doing this until whatever needs out of my head is on the page. So that's the first layer. Now for the next layer, I'm going to bring in washi tape. Each one of the rolls represents a different country. So there'll be famous buildings, monuments, scenes that represent that country on there. And these are ones that I chose because they're either places that I have thoroughly enjoyed going to or that I'm looking forward to visiting sometime in the future. And yes, if you're a washi tape collector like myself, I have links for you on where you can find these over on the blog at acolorfuljourney.com. Now these tapes are about 1.5 inches wide. They're actually pretty big for washi tape, but they don't look quite as big here, and that's because this is such a big giant jumbo journal. This is my 150-year-old ledger that's about 24 inches wide that I'm putting these in. Now that washi tape has beautiful pictures on it, love the designs, but not nearly enough color for me. So this layer is gonna bring the rainbow. What I've got there are just acrylic paints and paintbrushes, and I'm painting around the washi tapes. I should say that I'm starting out by painting around the washi tapes because sometimes, like I just did there with the yellow, I'm gonna paint right on top of the washi tape. Yep, you can paint on top of them. As long as it's not too thick or heavy a layer of paint that would basically peel right off, you can paint on top of them. At this point in the page, I was actually seriously considering leaving a bunch of this page uncolored, leaving a bunch of basically white space, even though it's a slightly creamy tan color because of the paper. But yeah, that part did not win out. The rainbow, the call of it was just too strong, so I ended up filling the entire page in, every little nook and cranny that I could, with color. So one of the perks that I didn't realize until I started working in such a large journal is that while working on one part of it, the other part has time to really start drying because, well, I guess you figured out I don't really paint at this speed. This is the camera speeding it up. It takes a while to fill in paint on a full large journal like this. And I didn't quite realize what a benefit that was to me until I got to the next layer on this, because it's nice that the paint was starting to dry. Now, was it perfectly dry? No, it's not completely dry, but it's definitely not juicy or that kind of thing when I get to the next layer. So I've just about got color everywhere that it can go on here, and now it's time to bring in the splotters. I call them this because when you give them a thwap right onto your surface, the color in it splots out. So hence the name splotter. This is not a technical term, it's a practical term. Now, how did I fill these bottles? What's in them? Why? All that kind of stuff. I made a video explaining all of that, and I'll have it linked down below for you. Now, the color that's in there is Marabu Art Spray. And the reason why I chose that one is because when it dries, it's permanent. So I can have all the fun in the fluid and the vibrant color, but once it's dry and I go to put more layers on top of it, it's going to stay where it is. It's not going to reactivate, and that's why I chose to put that stuff in here. It's very addictive for me to watch that paint go splot, so I really had to control myself to only do a few of those dark blue splots on there. For the rest of the colors that I'm putting on here, for the most part, is I'm putting puddles of color. Just giving it a squeeze of the bottle as I'm putting it on lets a lot more of the color come out and create those puddles that are forming in different places on the page. Remember when I said earlier in the video that when working on such a large journal, when using paints, that it's so nice because it starts to dry by the time you get to the other part of the page? Well, that's not the case of what's going to happen here. You can see all those shiny puddles of color on there. they are not going to be dry by the time I'm done with this page. So that means I'm going to have to work around those. Sometimes I'm going to make a bit of a mess. I'm going to smear a little bit of it. It might end up running where I didn't intend. And guess what? That's simply going to add to the look of the page on this, because this is not a precise, careful, meticulous kind of page. It's a loose and free and playful kind of page. And you might be thinking, Carolyn, get a heat gun out. That'll solve this problem. In no time, everything will be nice and dry on the page. And that's a very logical and reasonable suggestion to make. Except I have a strange aversion to heat guns. I don't like using them. I don't know why. They've never done anything to me that I know of in this life. Maybe it's something that happened in a past life. Not really sure, but I know at all costs I tend to avoid using a heat gun. So now you know one of those little quirks that I have when I'm creating. And I'm wondering, does anybody else out there have those kind of funny little quirks that aren't really logical, but they're just a part of the way that you do things? I'd love to know what yours are. Share them with us all in the comments. Still not enough color on the page for me, so I'm going to bring in the Marabu art crayons to add a little bit here and there. And those things, by the way, color right on top of washi tape really nicely too. They're also great for adding some scribble journaling, and that's what I'm doing here. Some more thoughts that were building up in my head, I'm getting those added to the page, and in the process, realizing what words that I want to be the title and to capture what's going on here. Now notice as I'm stenciling, some of the stencil is hitting the wet art spray that's still on the page. That's going to move it around and just add to the fun and the look of the page. I'm not going to worry about that because there's, well, just a little color happening around here. Now the word that I'm doing is untethered, and the stencil that I'm using is one by Seth Apter for StencilGirl. And what is that very fancy tool that I'm using in the black acrylic paint? Well, that is a cosmetic sponge. And how did it get to be so little and just perfect to fit one letter here so I don't have to mask anything off? Well, that's the magic of scissors. And large cosmetic sponges can get cut right down to whatever size you need. There was something else magical happening here, and that's spelling magic. I actually managed to spell all of these words correctly. Now you might think, that's not really that impressive an accomplishment. It's not like these are complex words. But for me when I'm stenciling, if I don't have them written out on the side, I tend to jumble up words in a heartbeat. I also tend to misspell things pretty frequently when I'm just writing them, so that's part of the reason why I'm drawn to scribble journaling. It takes all of that pressure about spelling and grammar off the table so it can just be about getting those feelings processed and out onto the art journal page. Well, thanks so much for stopping by for today's play. I hope you've had as much fun as I have. If you've been enjoying this video, I'd so appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more of what I make, hit that subscribe button. That way you'll know as soon as I have a new video out. And if you want more play right now, head on over to my blog at acolorfuljourney.com. Thanks so much for letting me be a part of your colorful journey.